Hello everyone and welcome to today's My Games Recruitment Show, where, as you can see, we're talking about obstacles to business change and, more importantly perhaps, how you're going to overcome them. So today I am of course joined by the magnificent Mike Ames. How you doing, Mike?
If I was a box of chocolates, I'd eat myself. I'm that good.
No, that was weird. I prefer you didn't use that one again.
I don't like that.
No, I didn't like that at all. And of course, I'm also joined by our special guest today, who's very, very special, and that is Pete, who's the other member of our team. Hi, Pete. How you doing?
I'm very good, Kirsty. Thank you. I didn't like the use of the word special the way you did it. I think if anyone else had said it, I'd feel good, but somehow it didn't feel right. But anyway, hello. Welcome, everybody.
We all know it's true. Now, Pete, the reason that you're here today, and we're going to go into this in a second, is because you are our sort of change champion, really. You understand most about this, which is why we've got you on the show. But before we sort of kick off, as we mentioned before, this is the new version of the show. We've been listening to feedback that everyone's been giving us over the last couple of months. And there's a couple of things. So this show is going to be slightly longer. As you can see, we started a little bit earlier. We should still aim to finish for 1 o'clock, but we've got more time for chat and questions and things like that. The other thing that we've got is we also realized that a lot of people watch the recordings of this, or we are going to be starting a podcast as well. So if you're watching this on a recording or on a podcast, and as you go through, you've got questions that you want answered or something like that, then all you need to do is email the question to kirsty@flair.co.uk. That's FLAIR for those on the podcast. And I will make sure that someone gives you an answer that helps. So yeah, that's the way this new thing is going to work. And we're all excited about trying it out, aren't we, Mike?
We are. And if you just want to ask a question and want to be anonymous, you can do the same thing. Yeah. Whack it in on an email. So that's good. Yes, all good.
Of course, those of you who are watching live with us, it's exactly the same way. You just put those comments in the box and we will answer them as we go through. Okay, so we are talking about sort of obstacles on working on your business. Now, what does working on your business actually mean? Can we start with that? Because I feel like that's the biggest question I've got. What's the difference between working on and working in?
Okay, so it's a broad church. So I'm going to give you some examples, but if you think something else constitutes working on your business, it's fine by me. But to give you an indication, so the first thing is direction. Direction. So as the leader, you set the direction, which means that the mission, the vision, the values, the goals, a strategy, the end result, the thing you want to build, that beautiful company that gives you everything that you want, and of course, building the plan to make that happen. All of that is working on your business. It's non-operational, is probably the best way to think about it, as is monitoring the execution of that plan, because it's a real big problem. And I know Pete's going to talk about it later, but people come up with plans and they believe in them. It's great. They start off all good and everything, and then it just goes dribble, right? So part of working on your business is to make sure that the plan is being executed and targets are being hit. And I don't mean operational targets, by the way, because that's done separately, but you're actually making progress along the plan to achieve what you want to achieve. All of that is working on your business.
Yeah, and I would just sort of pick up on that, Mike, because there's a whole bunch of things. I know we're going to talk about the plan in a bit more detail later, but milestones is a real key thing there. What you were talking about, milestones, I think, is that you've achieved something. And achieving things on the plan is so important for motivation. But there's also more amorphous things that kind of bleed between your job, working in the business, working on the business. For example, I personally think that coaching your leadership team to be a better leadership team sits under working on your business. It could be said that it's your job, you're the leader, but I think it sits on your business, something that makes your business much more efficient. That, for me, counts as working on your business.
And also the makeup of that leadership team, bringing people in, if necessary, moving people out of it. Your results in a business are pretty much driven by the leader. The leader is the person that makes things happen most. Second to that is the team that sits beneath you. Right, they will have a big effect. So it's a really important thing to make sure that team is exactly what you need it to be, and they're very fired up to be. So 100%, yeah. Also, as well, kind of allied to that is doing your own personal coaching or research and development. So it's working on your business and quite valuable to go to a seminar or go to, I don't know, a networking event, not to pick up clients or anything like that, but to expand your network, to build your network. Again, Pete, that's something I know you're very, very interested in.
Yeah, because we are the sum of the people around us in a lot of ways. To assume that we can all just lock ourselves in a room and just improve is very unrealistic. Pile of books, me, a lot of time, nowhere near as efficient. A lot of research says this, as interacting with people, bouncing ideas, being challenged. You know, no book challenges you. Like you just, yeah, of course that's what I meant. People challenge you, they push you, they inspire you, they question you. So I think working on that network, as you say, not just thinking, oh, can I sell them something, or can they help me find a client, but can they make me better?
Yeah.
Can they help me be more than I am now? So you
kind
should
of
have someone.
You know, I think thinking is a working on your business activity. I know it's like weird because we think all the time, but I don't mean thinking about operational things. Oh, I've got to answer that email, or what can I do about so and so? You know, they're not as good as they should be. But really thinking bigger thoughts, more strategic and longer term. Whereas working in your business has got a much shorter time period that you consider, end of the day, end of the week, end of the month. Working on your business spans for months or even years. They tell me in Japan, some of the big Japanese companies have 30-year business plans. That's a lot of working on your business right there.
That is indeed. Okay, so I think both of you have slightly alluded to this, but I want to make sure that we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. You've explained what working on your business is. Why exactly is it so important if you want a scalable business?
Because it means you don't have to do real work. Duh. No, just kidding. All I may be, let's have a meeting. I don't want to do any work. Let's do that meeting thing. No. I think that the big thing is for me is that you're much more in control. That's the first thing. So you know exactly where you are, where you want to be, and how you're going to get there, and you are executing a plan to make that dream a reality. And because of that, you can, if you want to be much more efficient and effective. Because now when you have like spare time that you would normally fill with your emails or something, you can invest it working on your business to get the plan further ahead, and you know exactly what to do and when to do it. So I think that the really big thing for me is control, that feeling of control, that feeling of being in control. And of course, everyone around you can see that you're in control as well.
And I think that's a really, really important point, that last one, that sense that people can see you're in control, because the team you build is your business, right? Maybe you've got a lot of automation, you've got a lot of tech flowing around, but still somebody's got to pull the switches and levers and things. And the team is the business. And the longer they stay, the more efficient they will be, the more effective your business will be. Like, that's a long-term team that's half the size will beat a team twice the size that's just been chopped and changed.
Yeah.
So for them to look at you and believe, yes, I've hitched my wagon, my career wagon, to somebody who knows where they're going, knows what we're doing, there's a plan, and it's happening. That's actually a really important component. And communication of the plan, often something that's skipped, is almost as important as the plan itself.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Have I got just a little bit of time that I could talk about the trireme and the longboat?
You've got 1 minute.
Ooh,
1 minute.
Can you do it in one?
He's going to have 90 seconds. I know he is. That's why I gave him a minute.
This is really important, right? There's two types of businesses. We hadn't planned this, not been rehearsed. Oh, I've got a minute. In fact, I've got 55 seconds.
Wasting it now. Come on. TikTok.
Oh, I'm under stress. No, two types of businesses. The longboat, which we all know what that is. It's a Norse longboat. The trireme was an ancient Roman warship, 3 layers of oars, you know, a big thing on the front with a metal thing to ram pitches, right? So some companies run their stuff like on a trireme. So in a trireme, everyone was, the slaves were all downstairs, all chained up, and they were rowing, and their only instruction was a whip and a big bloke on a drum to tell them how fast to row. Upstairs, the officers and the captain were sipping the Roman equivalent of Sancerre under a shade and just saying, we'll go that way now, we'll go that way. All that happened downstairs was, you guys stop rowing, you row quicker. The direction was dreadful, really. It worked. It was a very efficient way of doing it, mainly because there were slaves tied in and couldn't get out. If those people down below decks had a choice, they would leave because they were in dreadful conditions. They weren't looked after. They had no direction. They had no purpose. They didn't know what they were doing, and they were treated quite badly. The longboat was completely different. In those days, anyone who was rich enough could build or buy a boat, and then they could run an expedition. It's like, well, I'm thinking of sailing across the North Sea, getting some monasteries, getting some gold and coming back. Who's with me? And it was like, yeah, I want a piece of that action. Yeah, give me some of that. Because everybody knew what it is that they were going to do. and everybody knew what they were going to get at the end of it and what they needed in order to make that a success. And so if you run a business like a longboat, so everybody knows what they're going to get, everybody knows what they're there for, everybody's equipped and looked after in the right way and managed, and everybody's pretty much sharing the same conditions, you'll get a lot more loyalty and you'll get a lot higher morale, and people will stay with you longer. Did you see, we ran a masterclass the other day, and I was quite proud of this. So you hire for dough, but you got it wrong.
Come on, try again. Nobody's watching, it's fine.
When it comes to people, right, you hire for show, but you retain for dough.
It's good. It's good.
I just wanted to Kirsty, could I just add something on the back? I know we've got time. I just want to add something onto the back of that trireme longboat bit. It's worth noting that the conditions in the longboat were still pretty crappy. North Sea, cold, everybody pulling on ropes, but everybody wanted to be there. They were willing to do that hard work in a way that a bunch of slaves never would. And that's what you get from getting the team on board. It's not that it's an easy life. It's still a hard job. Recruitment is a hard job when you get under the hood of it. You've got to do a lot of effort, but they want to do it. Yeah. That's the key.
Yeah, it's a good point. Okay. And I do think, just before we move on from this, it is about the plan, the direction, the leadership. Working on your business again is about leadership. You want to be a great leader, work on your business more.
Yeah, so if I may, if you have the control element, Mike, that you spoke about before, and then you get the buy-in from the team, that team morale, essentially what you get is you're more likely to achieve your goals. You're more likely to get a business that works for you rather than a business that you're a slave to.
Yeah, you are. I mean, there's data swilling around.
I've got a few bits here actually. Just if I can throw these out, just very quickly online. Don't know how true they are, but I saw different numbers, but they're all about this scale. First piece of research I saw that was really interesting is 5% of small businesses achieve their objectives.
Oh, wow.
Because usually they set a number and that's it. They don't do the plan afterwards. And then can go with that, there's a lot of research on people who set goals and whether or not they hit them. Career goals, personal goals, business goals, whatever it may be. It seems to all follow a very similar trend. People who set goals are 43% more likely to hit them. And another interesting one, again, that day said only 6% of people actually do hit their goals when they set them. And the more detailed, the more specific, the more challenging the goal actually, the more likely it is people are going to hit them if they've defined in detail what they look like.
What it is, though, I think it comes down to the execution and monitoring the execution of the plan. Because I think we do this all the time with our clients, all the time. One of our 7 pillars is direction. It's the very central one. What the heck are you building? How are you going to build it, right? We have to have that for them. And one of the things that gets me is that that's not that difficult, really. You watch all of our videos, download our ebook, it kind of gives you the plan, really. Where it breaks down is the execution, I think, is that people execute for a bit and then they don't. And as I said, I know you're going to talk about this later, this discipline thing, but it is about making sure that you build the right plan and execute, and you'll be one of the 6% then, which would be nice.
So that actually leads me really nicely onto the next bit. And this is where we start getting more practical. We start giving people ways to get around it, which is, it's clear to me how important this is, right? It's clear to me and the stats that Pete just said obviously demonstrate that really well. So why is it that this doesn't happen in a business? Why is it that people can't do it or don't do it, do you think?
Do you want to take this one, Mike?
Yeah, there are actually quite a few reasons. Some of them are very individual and personal, but there's 4 that crop up time and time and time again. And when I start working with people, particularly as private clients, because I get into their world, then you see these happening all the time. So I tell you what I'll do. I'll headline them real quick, and then we'll come back and explore each one, and I'll tell you how to get around them. Well, or Peter will. That's what it is, really. Okay. So first one is focus. Knowing what you're supposed to be doing, which would be nice. That's okay. Next one is knowledge and understanding of how you can achieve what you want to achieve. Next one is time, the big one, the point that a lot of people have tuned in for this. I'm going to put a lot of effort into time. And then the last thing is discipline or accountability, if you want to call it that, whatever. If you are entirely focused, you know exactly what you're doing, you make the time for yourself, and you're disciplined, you will achieve whatever you want. I'll tell you that right now. You know, just for a second, can we talk about gymnasiums? Because I'm an expert on gymnasiums and losing weight. right? January the 1st. Okay, January the 1st. Everybody joins a gym, right? And let's face it, if you go to the gym, there'll be people there who can show you how to exercise. You follow the diets, you lose weight. By about March, I think it's down to a third of people that signed up are still doing it on a regular basis. Give it another month or so and it's dropped still further. Even though the knowledge and the time, yeah, it's okay. It's the discipline that blows it. So I think you need all of those things, but you especially need the discipline at the end of it. Otherwise, you won't do it. Not that I've not gone down the gym after 3 weeks of intensive exercise or anything like
Obviously,
that.
of course. So why don't we look into those a little bit deeper? Shall we start with focus? Shall we? Let's look at it.
Let's.
Right.
Can I throw out just to say, because I use a slightly different set of terms and it's going to confuse things if I try and stick with it. I kind of translate what Mike's got there into the classics: where, what, when, and why. Where am I going? Where am I going? And does the thing that business owners, in my experience on this focus one, a lot of advertising thrown at them, a lot of people trying to pitch them out great solutions to a problem, very susceptible, therefore, to, I could do that. Sounds like a good idea.
Oh, magpie.
Oh, we're as bad. We're buggers for marketing tech, honestly, all over the place. But because we have the plan where we're going, I've got much better at saying no. So that focus piece, really important. Where you're going, then what is it you're going to do to get there? That's what you're saying about, Mike, the knowledge, when you're going to do it, the time, and why you're going to do it. Well, we'll talk about that one at the very end, the discipline piece. But on this focus, I wanted to draw it out because I think having the plan we talked about earlier, people having that, it almost always causes some natural things to happen, which is that people start looking at a good idea and saying, great idea, but does it align to the plan? And I think that's one of the most useful things about a plan, isn't it, Mike?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I know you're going to talk about time management in a minute, and we're going to have a big session on it because it's so important. And the data is overwhelming once again that we are nowhere near as efficient as we could be. So we can find the time to work on our business. Spoiler alert, yes, you can. But part of it is not the question, could I do something? The actual question is, should I do it? And the answer to that is driven by, is it on message or not? Is that going to move me closer to the goal or not? Because if it isn't, we're not doing it. And in recruitment, we had a masterclass the other day, and we were talking about this in detail. And we had the discussion around, well, should I do this market? Should I do that? The question is, well, not should you, because you can. Of course you can. The question is, well, no, should you do it? Not could you do it? And I think that's really important. And the plan will give you that focus, that direction, and gives you an idea of what the journey is going to look like. Someone said no one's going to get on a boat that's got no destination and no captain. Well, actually, I probably would if there were drinks on there back in the day. But booze cruise. But essentially, we want to know where we're going, and we want to know how we're going to get there. And we want to know that the driver or the person in charge has got all of that nailed, because then we can concentrate on doing what we're doing. And demotivation often comes from a lack of focus. So the focus is cured by getting a plan. It's not difficult. Step number one, what do you want the business to do for you? We talked about that loads of times on this show. What do you want? You're the owner, for goodness sakes. What do you want it to do for you? You're not a slave to that business. That business is a slave to you. Whatever you want it to do after the first 3 years, you do what you need to do. But after the first 3 years, no, this damn thing is going to work for me. Well, okay, what does that look like? Okay, we know that. Now we can draw up a shape of a business, the people in it, the kind of work that we'll do, the kind of numbers that apply to that. Great, well, we got that then, which will give us that life that we want. Now it's the plan. And let me tell you what a plan is, ladies and gentlemen. A plan is about change. It's about, well, okay, this thing we don't do and we should do. This thing we do and we shouldn't do. This thing we can do better. I need to bring this tool in, that person in, put that process in. It's those kind of changes. It's not difficult to do. Once you've got an idea what you want to achieve, it's really, really simple. And we do it. It takes a couple of hours probably to get the outline plan done. That's all it's going to take if you're working on your time, if you do it well, to get that in place. My goodness, that feels better when that's done.
I would also say that this focus piece is the difference between a recruiter that happens to own their own business and a business owner who sometimes does recruitment. I think this focus element, this piece of I know where I want it to go, is the thing that turns you into a business owner.
Well,
I would say.
I can tell you, this morning I've got a manufacturing company as a client. So about 80% of our clients are recruiters. Manufacturing company, we're using exactly the same as this in manufacturing. It's exactly the same. What is the plan? How are we going to execute it? So the focusing should not be a problem. We can tick that box relatively easily if we put that together. I think the next two are more interesting, really, because the next one is knowledge. Right. So we know what we have to do. The plan says, you know, we need to win more high value clients. So we need a high value client engine, which is going to bring those in. Well, we know that. That's great. How the heck are we going to do that? Well, there are two ways that you can do that. You can buy in that knowledge, or you can do it yourself. Pros and cons of both. Let's talk about choice and consequence, shall we? So if you decide to buy it in, the consequence of that is you're going to have to spend some money. Okay, that's fair enough. The stakes here are so high that you could spend a lot of money and still it will be worth it. You know, you hire a consultant, you spend 12 grand over a year and they double your profits. It's like, it's a no-brainer, really. That isn't the question. It's whether you want to work with someone, whether you're prepared to take instruction from people, whether that person's approach is the same as your approach, and whether you want to work in that kind of environment. But you can certainly buy it in. Or there's lots of online stuff that you can get. You can buy books that tell you all about it. So you can get that knowledge. That's not difficult by either bringing someone into the business or reaching out and getting content from somewhere. You could probably do most of it from our free content, actually. You know, with the Recruitment Pioneers website and all the other stuff that's out there, you could probably do it, and a mix of YouTube and what have you. So you can do it 100%, right? If you do it yourself, well, there are some benefits to that. The consequence is the lessons you'll learn will be deeper because you'll learn by mistakes, for sure. But unfortunately, when you do something you don't really know that much about, you go down what are called attractive cul-de-sacs. An attractive cul-de-sac simply means it seems the right course of action at the time. You're convinced it is the right course of action. Other people are saying it's the right course of action. Then you get in there and you realize it's a dead end and you have to come back out again. What that cost you? I'll tell you what it costs you. It costs you time, it costs you money often, and it costs you credibility. Because if you make too many of those mistakes, people are going to think, well, you know, it doesn't seem to know what they're doing, really. You know, why are we making all these mistakes? Why are we doing these things wrong? Particularly if they thought you shouldn't have done it in the first place. Well, I always knew that was going to be a mistake, you know. So I think it swings and roundabouts which one you choose, but you can get that knowledge one way or the other. So now we've got another tick in the box, which I think is reasonable. We've got, I can get focused by having a plan and executing it, and I can get knowledge either by buying it in or by being structured about the trial and error, getting it out there and learning it. So far, so good. So far, so good.
I agree. And I would say, actually, of those two, I have a slight bias towards buying the knowledge in for a very simple reason. The thing we're about to talk about is that often, as part of change process, or we work with people, about carving out time. I have no time. Well, let's have a look. That's what we're going to talk about. But they'll often do that first. And then they've got the time. They sit down. They know that the big plan will be over there. I'm here. I've got all this time. I don't know the next most important thing I should do.
Oh, yeah.
Don't know the next most important thing to do. So they pick up the phone or they send some emails.
Revert back to working in the business.
We revert back to working in the business. Exactly. Yeah. So you do need the knowledge and the time. And it's not like one can come before the other. You can spend all this time getting all the knowledge, but if you're not willing to make some time, it won't work. You can really carve up your time to work on the business, but if you don't know what to do to get from A to B to C to D, then you also won't do anything. Yeah. You do need both. So should we talk about time?
We will.
I think so, because I think this is the thing that most people relate to. When we speak to people, I've got no time to do it, is the number one comment I feel that we get.
Well, I just want to pick up on something Pete said there, because that's true. But sometimes you can be overwhelmed with things that you could do. And then on the house of change, you basically just drop into the pit of paralysis and you don't do anything. It's like, well, I don't know what to do. Oh, I'll tell you what, like Peter, I'll pick up that phone and ring someone, or I'll answer this email or something. And I don't think that's the case. It should be, I've got this time coming up, which is working on your time, working on your business time, and I know exactly what I'm going to do. In fact, I need to do that because I've got a deadline, which I've committed to the change team in my business. I'm going to do this by then. So when we come back together again, I will have done it. And I think it all comes together. But okay, so supposing then, Pete, someone said, well, I love in all of this. I can buy the knowledge in. That's easy. I've got a plan. So I'm kind of cool with that, really. I've got no time though. Look at my diary. Look at my diary. Look at it. It's just, what are you going to do?
Yeah, well, there's some interesting stats around this, which I'll say now to make people believe it's possible. And then I think we've got a little tool that we're going to walk people through. Some
a little tool. It's wonderful, and I've been using it for 20 years.
It's good. Then,
keeping it secret from all of you, everybody. Selfish. Naughty, Michael. Naughty. Interesting stat I read while looking into this. There are some stats out there that reckon most people do between 2 and 3 valuable hours of work per day.
Yeah.
The rest is wasted. And I've seen variations on that from...
It's off mission is what it is. So it's work. It's work, but it's off mission. Whether you do it or not doesn't make a lot of difference.
Yeah, it's busy. Yeah. I like that phrase.
Busy work, yeah. Another interesting one was there was a study and they estimate between 9 and 12 minutes of planning your day the night before saves business owners, this is specifically business owners, 2 hours a day.
Yeah, can I just pick up on that as well? The lower down you are in an organization, the less effect this has. So if you're working in a factory pulling a handle, then probably 8 hours are effective because you pull the handle all day, right? The further up the chain you go into leadership and then beyond, it definitely applies. So the more operational you are, I suppose is what I'm saying, the less these stats apply. But we're only interested in you guys who are leaders. That's what we're interested in. That's what we're talking about. So that is really, really interesting stuff there, Pete.
Thank you. So let's bring up the tool, and I'll walk people through it. For those on the podcast, I'm going to do the best to paint a word picture with my dulcet
word picture.
Yeah. Thank you. So what we've got on the screen here is a time optimization table, and on the top we've got 4 columns: $0, $10, $100, $1,000. And these are a way of categorizing any activity you might be doing. So let me just talk through an example of each of those. So a $1,000 task would be pitching to a huge potential new client for a chunk of business that you know is going to transform your business. That's $1,000 task. Give it to the person who's best, which is probably, as a business owner, is probably you. $100 task.
Before we move on from that, so drill into $1,000 tasks a bit more, because I do this with people, as you do, and we get these questions cropping up. $1,000 task is something that you're really good at, probably that you enjoy, actually, and has a big impact on the business. And either other people can't do it anywhere near as well as you can do it, or they perhaps can, but the consequence of failure is quite high. So if you say to someone, oh, look, tell you what, you keep an eye on the cash in the business, right? Because that's, in terms of ability, that's a $10 task. It's not difficult, right? But the consequence of getting it that wrong is you go bankrupt because you run out of money, right? So sometimes it's your ability, your experience, your network, but sometimes it's your power and authority allied to, if this goes wrong, that's really bad for us. So it isn't that difficult to figure out what your $1,000 tasks are when you look at it from that direction.
Okay.
And then at the other end, you've got the $0 tasks. Classic example. Just check my emails. Just check them. Or I'll just pop on YouTube. Things that obviously don't do it have any value, but we still do them if we look at how we spend our time. But also things that are tempting. Mike, do you want to give a good example from your experience of a common $0 task that we fall into?
Oh, there are loads of them, really. And what they are is, I'm going to give you an example in a minute, but what they often are is we kid ourselves. We kid ourselves that they're actually valuable, but they're not. So, for example, I've got a great example, actually, which we can use a bit later as well, because when we kind of talk about how we process this. I was working with someone and she was going to a lot of networking events. A lot of networking events. And when we analysed it, there was only one that generated leads consistently. 90% of the leads came from this, and it was about 2 hours of the 11 hours a week, 11 hours a month that she spent on it, right? So 9 hours were wasted. Now you could argue, well, that's not a $0 task. Well, it is if you go there and you don't get anything from it, then it's a $0 task. So on the face of it, yeah. Oh, well, it's a really important thing. Go to networking events. So that's $100 or $1,000 task. Yeah, only if it bloody well works. So you have to look a little deeper than just what's the title to it.
I feel like another one that's really common, particularly with solopreneurs, would be redoing the website. I feel like that always comes up. We're redoing the website. I feel like that's a really common one that people spend a lot of time in, which has a minimal effect.
Again, it's classic case. Sometimes, yes, it's necessary because your website is rubbish or your business has changed so much. Like ours, we need to do the website, right? Everyone knows that. We don't. It doesn't seem to make a blind bit of difference to our business, but we should do it because it make our lives a bit easier. But for a lot of people, it's just polishing the deck chairs, on the Titanic. It doesn't make any difference, really. That their problems don't lie in their website. So it's a $0 task. And you really have to have someone to push you on that. That's really important to really challenge. Is that really a $10, $100 task? Because I don't think it is, because you don't really get much value from it. So it's about the value that you get from it.
Yeah, and that's why we put dollars on them, and as you say, almost exactly the same activity, going to a networking event here, $0 task, that particular networking event, $100 task, even a $1,000 task, depending on how you categorize them. The 10 and the 100, I think, are the trickiest ones to split. And for me, I think the real segmentation is they both need to be done. The $100 task, it makes sense for you to do it, or to invest a lot of time and effort in getting somebody coached and trained up to do it on your behalf.
Yeah.
$10 task.
That's the key thing. Before we move on to $10, that's the key thing. It's important, needs to be done right, and it's probably quite complex. There's a complexity to it. In other words, you can't just say, "Oh, just do that for me, would you?" Which you would do with a $10 task. This, you're going to have to explain processes, coach, probably monitor for quite a while to make sure it's been done properly.
It would be a slow delegation rather than
delegation, yeah, for sure, yeah. But it's so well worth it because the vast majority of our tasks, you'll find are $100 tasks. I tell you, if you do the analysis right, and we're going to ask you to do the analysis later, right? I'm telling you, that's where the battle lies. You can free up those $100 tasks. You'll naturally gravitate to your $1,000 tasks. What's that thing, Pete? You're working with someone and they said, we want to get rid of BD or something. What do you say? And they were the
I have this. I've just detected this trend when I'm working with sort of solopreneurs who've just set up, or maybe they've got one very small resourcer out in India or something. Like, next thing I do, I want to get someone in who can do BD, and I'm like, the thing you're really good at, your unique talent, the most important element of your business that will direct it, and the hardest thing to hire. That's the thing you want to get rid of first, not the recruitment process of managing a role and just double checking candidates. Important. Don't want to dismiss it. It is important, but it is much easier to train and teach someone to do that than the $1,000 task of winning new high value clients.
Would you say that $100 tasks as well sometimes have a check-in at the end? So like you do like the bulk of the work and then the last 1%, I'll just throw my eyes over.
Yeah, you can do that. You can do that for sure. And you can insist on certain reports coming back, some dashboards to know what's going on, right? So if you delegate, say, debt chasing, it's fine to do that. It's not a critical day-to-day thing, but you want to know it's done. So you get your monthly report, check it, yeah, it's fine. Or, tell you what, we need to have a look at that. Management is a big thing that sits in there. So you manage things or manage people, $100 tasks, but you can't just give that to someone. You need to really coach someone. But when they take it away from you, it's a game changer.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then you've got the $10 tasks. I think a really nice line you drew for me, actually. $100 tasks, you still need to keep an eye on. $10 tasks need to be done. And actually, once you've got somebody up and running them, you can kind of leave it almost. Yeah. Really? Like, you don't have to keep watching and double checking.
I have a load of these things. Like Melanie's my PA, and she does most of my $10 tasks. So she'll do stuff that happens every week. We'll just schedule and she just does them. Or I'll say, like yesterday, someone sent me a LinkedIn message saying, can we have a chat? Well, it's important. It's got to be done. But I'll just send a quick note to Mel, say, could you sort this out for me? I noticed this morning it's been put in my diary for the week after next. So They're just things that need to be done and need to be done properly, but it's not that much of a big deal to hand them over to people, right? So.
Yeah, and automation, a lot of modern technology, AI, as we're seeing, is exploding. Still got a good 12, 18 months before I think it will really rock the world. But it's a place to put these kind of tasks. We're going to talk about delegation in a second. $10 tasks are the most obvious ones. Calendar organization is the easiest and most obvious.
Yeah, for sure.
But it doesn't have to be a person. It can be a thing, a system, a piece of technology that you lean on to take that $10 task. You'll never give a $100 task to a piece of IT.
Well, you shouldn't really. No, you
shouldn't really.
Okay, just before we go on, if anyone's got any questions around this, it's not a particularly complex concept, but the implementation of it can be quite tricky. So if you've got questions or you've got any comments on this, I'd really love to hear them. So stick them in the chat or email them to Kirsty.
Okay, so is it time to move on to the last step, which I believe is quite closely linked with time?
No.
We need to go through what you do once you've categorized your tasks.
Oh, well, then you need to do it quickly.
Yes, that's fine, because it's very easy to do. Mike, could you bring them up for me?
I can indeed.
Yeah. So once you've got these tasks, you've got to start figuring out what you're going to do. Some you're going to do. And you may have some $10 tasks that you can't get rid of yet because you haven't got anybody and there's no IT that can do it and they need to be done. But they would be top of your list on your plan to find somebody to get rid of them to, because you've got a ton of them. And eventually you want to move towards your do is almost all $1,000 or the odd $100 tasks. Delegate and outsource, obviously, like I said, people or systems. And that's where you need to push a lot of the $10 tasks, the $0 tasks, if you really can't let go of them, and maybe the odd $100 task as well.
And that's why we have outsourcing there, isn't it, Pete? Because you might.
That's why outsourcing, because a person.
Right, so you just think, well, okay, I can't do this, so you get yourself a VA or something. We've got and she does a lot of Melanie's tasks actually for her these days. So.
She does, and I would always say before you go for automation, I would actually recommend getting a VA and outsourcing, because human intelligence catches a lot of mistakes. If you automate a mistake, it will just keep making that mistake blindly until you eventually recognize it. VA, and then you can move from the VA to the automation. That's my suggestion. Not always, but it's a good one. Delay and dilute.
That's your website. That is your website. Yeah, we do need to do it 100%. It is not looking great, but it's not hurting us now. Tell you what, we'll do it in the autumn.
That's most closely linked to focus, isn't it? Those two.
Yes. Yeah, those two are. Yeah. So don't do it now, do it later. It's on the plan, just not now. And this is with business owners, the biggest thing. You have limited time. You do have limited time. That is absolutely true. And you have limited headspace, right? Yeah. So that means you can't do everything. So you have to delay some things. It's natural. It's not failure. It's a smart decision. And dilute means just keep it going, but do less of it. Yeah. Maybe your social media. You've committed to writing a blog post every week. Well, drop it down to every 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I really love dilute, and it's one that gets missed often. Because they say, well, we'll do it or we won't do it, or we might delay it. But no, you can do it, but just do less of it. You're fine. Okay.
Yeah. And then you've got delete, which is pretty obvious. It's just stop doing it. And the nice one with dilute is everybody's nervous. Nobody does something they think is pointless. There's always that sense, oh, maybe it is important. With delete, stop, but monitor. Classic example, producing a report for somebody. Stop producing the report. If they don't mention it, or produce the report but don't send it, that kind of little measure. And then if nobody says anything and nothing bad happens, you're like, oh, yeah, no, it wasn't necessary.
So we used to do that back in IT, actually. We used to do that.
I've done it a lot.
Can you give us the 3 strikes and you're out on the delay then, Pete? Just give us that one.
Yeah, so delay, if you say, we won't do it this sprint, big fan of sprints, 6 weeks to 2 months. Not only this sprint, we'll do it the next one. Next one rolls around. Actually, there are other higher priorities. And then it gets shifted a third time. I'd actually put in the delete pile or onto the back burner completely, and you just stop thinking.
I can see Kirsty's getting antsy now. Kirsty's getting antsy now.
I am getting antsy now. We are going to have to move on to discipline, guys, because I think this one is the most. This is linked to every other single thing that we've got here. Focus, knowledge, and time all comes down to discipline.
Right, and actually, it's quite a short one, weirdly. But before we do this, we regular viewers of the show will know we don't pitch on the show. We don't do any of that stuff. But we're making an exception this time because this is so important. It's very hard, and a lot of our clients are small clients, and they really struggle with that. We have a thing called the Flair Change Club, It's 299 quid a month, 297 quid a month, right? And there's no sign up for it. You just stay in it as long as you want. It ticks all of these boxes. It will give you the content. It will help you build a plan. It will give you the time. Pete will help you because Pete runs it. Pete will give you the time to be able to work on your business and a structure to make it happen. And you will see a change in your business if you do it. Now, the thing that's most important, I think, is the last one, which is discipline. And that's what it gives the most, is that just like the gymnasium, if you've got no one to be accountable for, after a while, it just drifts away. The day-to-day takes over because it's very attractive and very compelling and sucks you into it. So, and then before you know it, you're not doing the plan anymore and you're stood still. What we want to do is get you into a river in a boat, which is nice and warm and dry, and it's going somewhere. We don't want you drifting into the shallows or on the shore. That's what a change habit looks like, and that's what it does. So discipline is the last of those things. Pete, can we talk about that? Oh, by the way, if you want to know more about that, i.e. not commit, but if you want to know more, then just drop Pete an email, pete@flair.co.uk, with Change Club in the heading, and he will explain exactly what it's all about, and you can see if it's for you. Now, Pete, do you want to talk to us a little bit about discipline?
Sure. Yeah, I do. And just to say on the Change Club, it ticks all four of these boxes that we talked about: the where, the when, the when, the why, and the what. So, but the discipline, the why, I think probably the best place to start is with something everybody's familiar with. Something happens that is pressing and proximate. So, classic example, an email from a client comes in. You're in the middle of something, but the little box in the right-hand side of your thing pops up and you can see it's from so-and-so, from Kirsty. Oh, it's a client email.
I would ignore it.
It's making a noise at me. You're going to ignore it because you're disciplined. Most of us.
No, because it's from Kirsty, but there you go.
Okay. But it's pressing, right? It's here. It's in your noise, and it's right there in front of you. So it's climbing. Too many of us will chase that ball straight away. There, we'll drop what we're doing and chase it. There's so much research that says that kills time. They reckon 15 minutes every time you switch a task before you can get back into it. And if you're dropping balls in years, it's easy to burn up 2 hours a day. Just fly by. Discipline is about staying focused on what you were doing. We talked about that earlier. And it's not just easy to do by going, no, I won't do that. You need something else there. And the reason that I'm a huge fan of the Change Club is because, as you said, you alluded to, Mike, that buddy system, feeling that you owe something to somebody else. And there's kind of 3 different groups of people you can owe something to. There are your peers. So Change Club, there is a huge element there of a social side. Other recruitment business owners all going down the same path. There's that sense that you've said you're going to do something and you've got to go back to them.
It's not for you, right? Because we're not pitching, but even if it's not for you, get somebody to be accountable for, because discipline stems from accountability. That's the key thing. If you're accountable to somebody or something, or even having a change club, a change group.
Well, that's the other two. So I was going to say, so the other one is a coach. Can absolutely do that. So a peer or a coach. By the way, my peer, the peer I have that I stay accountable to, is my mate who runs an engineering business.
I have the same. Do you want a marketing business?
Marketing business. My peer is somebody else who runs a business.
I would know.
No, but you to us, 2 of us.
Alan.
Don't do it, shout.
Thank you, Alan.
But coach, also perfectly viable. And that sense that they told you agreed, you promised them you were going to do it. And then, it's getting a bit close. I really need to make this a priority. That helps enormously with the discipline. But the third one that we sometimes forget is that we've told our team that we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Made a promise to our team, maybe even our clients, but definitely to the team. Right, next 6 weeks, we are going to build a new tool to win and start conversations with new clients. We're going to do the AIDA campaign that Mike's taught us about. We're going to build one. And at the end of it, you're all going to have an easier life.
So
6 weeks later...
If I'm going to summarize, because we're running out of time now. So what you're saying is you can get accountability. You can buy it in, or you can create it internally, but you can have it. You can be accountable to somebody. So if I was to summarize up everything, right? So I know Kirsty's like bobbing because we've literally got half a minute left. But okay, if you have a plan and you have the execution of that plan and you monitor it and you know exactly what you're doing, you've got the knowledge and you've built the time for yourself, which you can do. And you then are accountable to somebody or something, therefore you will succeed. I think it's harder to fail than succeed if you do all of those things. And it's something that, do you want to be in the 5%, man? Because if you do, on that screen is exactly what you should do. Okay, good.
Okay, so in a second, Mike, I'm going to come to you, and Pete, I know you've got the same tip anyway, to give somebody the first thing they should do when they're doing this. But let's talk about the next show, which is in 2 weeks, which is going to be a good one. We've got James Whitelock on it. Whitelock?
We do have James Whitelock. He's brilliant. He's an expert recruitment marketer, but he focuses a lot of his time and effort on attracting candidates. And I think some of the stuff he's talked to me about blew me away. So come on down 2 weeks and see what James has got to do.
Okay, fantastic. So, Mike, Pete, somebody's watching this and they're thinking, you know, I need to do this. But that, again, even just watching the show, there's 4 things there to do. What would you say is the first thing? What's your top tip that they should do?
I'll give mine. From experience, of the 4, time is the one that people just can't look past. Best thing you can do, analyze your time. Easiest way to do this, set a timer on your phone. Set an alarm for every hour or every 2, depending upon how busy you're on a day. And when it goes off, just write back what you just did in the last hour and how much time you think you spent on it.
What's that tool you sometimes recommend, Pete? What's the tool?
Toggl, Toggl, is a step beyond that. So Toggl is a plugin for Chrome. And what you do is you just, every time you switch task, you press the button, you tell it what you're about to start doing, and you press play. And then when you switch task, you stop and you start the next task. It requires a little bit more discipline. I like the alarm because we get going and we forget to do the switch.
I agree, but I know there's some people, because I've used it with them.
Some people can do it, yeah. But to definitely get started, set the alarm, go back, write down what you did, roughly how long you spent on it. Doesn't need to be bang on, and see what you see. And then you might feel inspired to say, actually, I really need to analyze this to another depth, get Toggl, or it identifies some low-hanging fruit for you to start delaying.
So it identifies those $0, $10, $100 tasks that you can then delegate out. Fantastic. Yeah. So we have come to the end of the show. We overrun a little bit here, but it's new. It's new for us all. It's Mike's fault as well. That's the other thing. Thank you very much.
Next week's YouTube as well. Ask Mike.
Oh, yes. So next week's Ask Mike is all going to be about KPIs, which I think a lot of people ask us about, and which KPIs you should have and such like. So Mike talks to us about KPIs.
If you want that, you can only get it on YouTube. You've got to subscribe, click on the little bell thing, and that comes about 7 minutes on KPIs, no chaos. Love it.
Okay, fantastic. So thank everybody for watching us. Thanks to Mike and Pete, and we will see you in 2 weeks.